Okay, so for this lecture video, we're going to talk about weighted averages. Okay, there are two things we need to know how to do for our exam. Number one is to how to calculate your GPA, and number two, which deals with your project, is how to calculate the weighted average. How do you calculate your final grade in the course? Okay, so those are the two things we're going to be learning in this part of week three lecture notes. Okay, so let's first look at the GPA. Okay, everybody is familiar with that. I'm thinking, right? So weighted averages are particularly useful when you want to emphasize some quantities more than others. For instance, in calculating the grade point average GPA, we would like to determine the average grade earned per credit hour. What value should be used to weight each course? All right, as you know, each letter grade you get, right, is given certain points. So if you got an A, you got 4 points, B 3 points, a C is 2 points, a D is 1 point, F is 1 point, 0 points. So you want to use the table below to find the GPA. Okay, so here is a sample. Okay, so the also um, important part about the GPA is the credit hours. So the more credit hours you have for a particular class, the more weight it has. Okay. So that's also plays in a huge factor in your GPA. Okay. So how do we do this? So the first column here in the table lists the class. The second column lists the credit hours. The third column tells us, how many points do we get for each of the letter grade. And then the fourth column here is what we need to do with the credit hours and the grade number. Okay. All right. So for the first one here, okay, let me use a different color. All right. So um, for history, this student had got a C for history. So we looked up here on our chart and we get 2 points. Okay, or this student gets 2 points for getting a C. So we write 2 points here. Okay. For A and P, the student got an A, which is fantastic. So get 4 points for that. Right. For the lab part, got a B, so that's 3 points. Okay. And for IV 101, um, got an A, so another 4 points. Okay. So after we write down the points that we get for the grades, then what we need to do next is we need to multiply, right? It says multiply the credit hours times the grade number. So we're going to multiply these guys. Okay. So 3 times 2 is going to give us 6. 4 times 4 is 16. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 4 is 4. Okay. Now, what is the highest? First of all, let's go ahead and add these up. Okay. So what do we get there? We got 12 and 20, so 32, right? So this gives us 32. Okay. Now, what is the highest number that a student can get? What's the highest GPA? 4.0, right? 4.0. So if you get an answer of 32, is that a GPA? No. But I get this a lot on the tests. Okay. They get some big number. I'm like, no, that's not GPA. The highest number you can get on a GPA is 4.0. That's it. So if you get anything bigger than that, that means there's something wrong in the calculations. All right, so what do we do with this number? Well, we need to add the credit hours, right? That's what I said. The credit hours is essential. So we're going to add these credit hours. So we get 7, 9, 10. So we have a total of 10 credit hours. Okay. So for example, I'm teaching 21 credit hours this semester, which is a lot. Okay. But anyway, so what do we do with those? So once we add up the credit hours, we're going to divide that to the 32. So 32 divided by the number of credit hours is going to give us a GPA of 3.2. Okay. And that's how they calculate your GPA. okay, overall. Okay. All right, so here's another example, just making this up. So to make sure that we know how to do this. All right. So for A, we got 4 points. For B, we get 3 points. For C, we get 2 points. And for D, we get 1 point, right? So then what we need to do is we need to multiply these guys, right? So 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 1 is 3, and then we add them up. So what do we get there? 12 plus 9 is 21, 23, 26. Okay. So when we add these guys up, we get 26, and then we add up the number of credit hours. So that's going to give us what? 10. Okay. Then we just divide them, right? So we take the total we have here, the 26, and divide it by the number of credit hours. So that gives us a GPA of 2.6. Okay. All right, so here's another type of weighted average. So it says, suppose a teacher wants to emphasize test scores more than other grades in the course. Using a percent weight average makes this easy to do. The teacher chooses the following weights. So for tests, you get 60%, for homeworks, 15%, and the quiz is 25%. Multiply the weight of each category by the category average and then take the sum of those products. If your average is 85% on tests, 100% on homework, 85% on quizzes, what is your final grade for the course? Complete the table below to help you calculate the final grade. Okay, so this one is nice because they already told us what the, again, please pay careful attention to what I'm saying here. So this one's nice because it tells us what the category average is. What we need to do first, okay, is we have to calculate the average. We'll have raw numbers. Okay. That is the part we have to do first, is we have to find the average of those raw numbers. Once we find the average, then we multiply it by the weight. But again, in this one, they already tell us the average, so we're good to go. Okay. But normally you would have to find the average first of those particular, category and then multiply by the weight. Okay. All right. So here we have 85 for tests, right? 100% on the homework and 85% on quizzes. Okay. All right. So there's two ways to do this. Okay. Um, we can change each of these columns into percentages or decimal values, or we can just do one of them. Okay. That's what I prefer. Again, that's what you are going to do. All right. But again, those two different ways, you'll get the same outcome. It's just that the other way, you'll have to do an extra step. So, but in this case, this one, you don't have to do that extra step. So what we need to do is we need to multiply the percent, the weight to the average. Okay. So in this case, we'll have 15% times that by 100. And this one we have 25% multiplied by 85. Okay. So uh, once you have this down, you need to convert that percent to a decimal, right? So to convert a decimal, you divide it, to a decimal, you divide it by 100, or you just move that decimal 2 places to the left. Okay. Divide by 100 or move it 2 places to the left. Same thing here. Okay, so we got 0.60, 0.15, and then 0.25. All right, and then we just multiply. So go ahead and multiply those out. Okay, so for the first one, we should get 51. The second one here, we have 15. The third one here, we have 21.25. Okay, so let me talk about what this means. And again, this is essential, especially in this class, okay? And any class that does weighted averages. So 51, what does that mean? Well, it's saying the max you can get for tests, right? The max you can get is 60%. Okay. But out of the 60%, you only got 51. Okay. For the homework, you got all of them. You got all the points for homework. It's 15%, you got all of them. For the quizzes, you got 21.25 out of 25. Okay. So this is a numbers game. So that's why I really emphasize that, you know, if you're not a good test taker, then you want to max out on the other categories, right? The homework, the labs, the quizzes, and all that stuff. Okay. All the other assignments. Because again, it gives you a little bit of buffer. Okay. If you're not a big test taker. All right. But if you choose not to do the homework or you don't complete the work, the labs and all that stuff, then your overall grade is going to be affected. Okay, and that means your grade is going to be lowered. So that's why I emphasize you need to max out your points on the other categories just to give you a little bit of buffer when it comes to test time. Okay, once we have this down, then we're going to add our points. Okay, so when we do that, we should get 87.25. Right? So what does that mean? So based off of this, okay, what we just calculated, this student here would get an 87.25%. Oops. Didn't like that. Okay, so 87.25%. Let me write it down here. Okay, so that would be a B or B plus. Okay. All right. Okay, it looks like a lot of you are done. So let's go through this one. All right, so what would happen if your average on test is still 85% and your homework average is still 100%, but your quiz average drops to 25%? What will be your final grade? Okay, so again, we just write down what our average is. So we got 85% for the tests. We got 100% on the homework, and then our quiz went down to 25%. Okay, so then we're going to multiply these guys here, right? And then make sure we change the first column here to decimal. So this would be 0.60, 0.15, and 0.25. Okay. So when we do that, again, we still get 51 here. We get 15, and then this dropped down to 6.25. Okay. And then we add them up. So when we add these, we get 72.25%. Okay. So now we went from a B to a C minus. Okay. All right. Okay, it says here your friend is in a science class where the grades are rated as follow. Lab reports are 20%, quizzes are 20%, the midterm is 30%, and the final is 30%. Help your friend calculate his final grade in the class if he has earned the following grades. Okay, so okay, so in this particular problem, it says your friend, I think I already read that already, but let's read it again. It says your friend is in a science class where the grades are weighted as follows. Lab reports are 20%, quizzes are 20%, the midterm is 30%, and the final is 30%. Okay? Help your friend calculate his final grade in the class if he has earned the following grades. All right, so again, the first thing we need to do here is we need to find the average of each of the categories. Okay, so that is essential. So for the first one, when we add these up and divide it by the number of labs we have an average of 77. For the quizzes, the average quiz score would be 78.5. For the midterm, there's only one, so we put 76. For the final, it's 54. Okay. All right. Now for the weights, we just use the weights that are given to us. So the lab reports here are 20. The quizzes are 20. The midterm is 30%. and then the final is also 30%. Okay. So I'm going to change the weight here from the percent to the decimal. So I'm going to change this to 0.2, 0.3. I'm sorry, 0.2, 0.2, 0.3, and then 0.3. Okay. After we change the weights to decimal, then we're going to multiply the average times the weights. Okay. Right. And this is what is called a weighted score. Maybe write that there. A weighted score. Okay. So for that, we get 15.4, 15.7, 22.8, and 16.2. Okay. And then we add these up. Okay. And when we add them, we get 70.1 degrees. Sorry, percent. Okay. So this is going to be your weighted average. Okay. That's your weighted average or your final grade for the course. Okay. So that would be a C minus. All right, it says a new local cafe wants to advertise an average price for their meal. Help them figure out an average if they sold 60 of their $5 tacos, 32 of their $7 sandwiches, 24 of their $8 mixed salads on a given day. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the items sold by how much each of the tacos and sandwiches costs, as well as the mixed salad, right? So we're going to do 60 times 5, 32 times 7, 24 times 8. All right. So when we do that, 60 times 5 is 300, 32 times 7 is 224, 24 times 8 is 192. Okay, after we do that, then we just need to add those numbers and we get $716. So that's the total cost if we bought all of those items. Now, what we need to do is to find the average price. We just take this number here and divide it by the number of items that we sold. So in this case, we would add 60 plus 32 plus 24, which gives us 116. Okay. So 716 divided by 116 will give us the $6.17. Okay. Okay, says here banks often use an average daily balance to assess interest on loans. This is essentially a weighted average. Use the account information to the right to calculate the average daily balance for the month of April. Okay. All right, so here it says the banks often use an average daily balance to assess interest on loans. This is essentially a weighted average. Use the account information to the right to calculate the average daily balance for the month of April. Right? So again, the first thing we need to do here is we need to multiply the number of days and the account balance. Okay. So again, what is this saying? It's telling us that if you ever check your bank account, right? Um, you'll see like how much money you have in your account every day. You can see it every day. And sometimes it fluctuates depending on whether you bought something or you deposited something in your account, or maybe it stays the same. Okay. So in this case, it says for 6 days, the balance was this much. Okay. For 14 days, the balance was this much. And for 10 days, the balance was this much. Right. So for 10 days, it was $2,036.12. Okay. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find, okay, what is the average daily balance for the month of April? So, and we use weighted average to do that. So again, we take 6 times the first amount here and we get 14616.72. The second one, when we multiply those, we get 31305.68. And then for the last one, we get 203. Where we write that? 20361.20. Okay. All right, so once you find the weighted score there, then you just add these numbers and we get 283.60. All right, so just as very similar to the GPA. And so once we find that, then we're going to add up the number of days, okay, and that will be 30, okay, and then we take the number of days and we divide that into the total that we received here. So divide this by 30 and we get $2,209.45.